BlackRock, the silent hand that shapes the world. Imagine one company that quietly pulls the financial strings of almost every corner of the world's economy, influencing where your pension is invested, how much you pay for everyday products, and even what your government decides in times of crisis. That company is BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, controlling an astonishing $10.6 trillion. And that's not their own money. It's your money, our money, from pension funds, university endowments, insurance policies, and retirement plans. We often talk about global superpowers as if they're only nations. But in reality, there's a financial empire whose reach dwarfs that of many governments, with stakes in 95% of Fortune 500 companies, and big issues and tentacles reaching into almost every central bank, regulatory agency, and major corporation. BlackRock isn't just participating in the global economy, it's running it. So how did this happen? Is BlackRock a harmless money manager or a silent engine driving wealth upwards and democracy downwards? Let's unpack the real story, a deep global dive into the architecture of financial dominance. The origins of passive power. To understand BlackRock's power, we first need to understand what an asset manager does. In theory, it's simple. They take your money, invest it in stocks or bonds, and try to make it grow. But BlackRock doesn't take risks like the daily Wall Street traders. Instead, it plays the long game. Index investing. Index funds were an innovation from the 1970s meant to spread out risk by investing in whole markets instead of picking individual stocks. Imagine betting on all the horses in the race instead of just one. You won't win big, but you won't lose big either. These funds became very popular because they were low risk and gave steady returns. But here's the twist. Someone has to manage those funds. That's where BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street come in, the so-called Big Three. They now hold massive passive stakes in practically every major company. That means even though they don't actively trade stocks, they have a huge amount of influence over global markets. Your money, their power. Most of the money BlackRock manages comes from big investors like pension funds, insurance companies, and universities. But the real source is everyday people, workers, teachers, nurses, police officers. BlackRock manages your retirement money, but you don't get to decide how it's used. In this deal, your say is traded away, first to your pension fund, then to BlackRock, and with that, your voting rights. This quiet hand now votes on executive pay, company mergers, and company rules, often siding with company bosses rather than when what's best for everyone. And it's a quiet funnel of power, far from democratic involvement and in the hands of a few rich people. Universal ownership, it's a dangerous illusion. You see, BlackRock doesn't own companies like business owners do. Instead, they own tiny pieces of everything, usually between 3 and 10% of big corporations. But here's the thing, when you own a piece of everything, you stop caring who wins. You just care about the whole market growing. This is what we call universal ownership. And it's both groundbreaking and, well, pretty dangerous, since BlackRock owns big shares of Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, and Lululemon. It doesn't matter which brand beats the other. All the profits go to the same place. This creates anti-competition incentives where companies are discouraged from cutting each other's prices, as this would hurt the collective profit BlackRock enjoys. In essence, we now live in an era of neo-monopoly where competitors don't need to merge, they already share the same owners. With suppression and the working class, this power structure has devastating consequences. One of the most obvious, stagnant wages. BlackRock-backed corporations can only boost profits in a few ways, and squeezing workers is often the easiest. Cutting benefits, keeping wages frozen, reducing full-time jobs. Meanwhile, corporate profits soar, executive pay skyrockets, and stock buybacks climb. But the everyday worker, the one whose pension funds fuel this empire, sees none of the rewards. And it's not just an American problem. Around the world, from Johannesburg to Jakarta, this model is being copied. Asset managers backed by global capital suppress wages, reduce competition, and centralize decision-making in boardrooms far removed from the communities they affect. Now this is where the rabbit hole gets deeper. BlackRock's biggest shareholders are Vanguard and State Street, and vice versa. These companies own each other in a complex web of financial recursion. This self-owning loop is unprecedented. It creates a financial feedback system where risk is shared, but accountability disappears. And it's not just banks and asset managers. There's like private equity firms and insurance companies are buying each other up at record rates. In many ways, the financial sector now owns itself. And when no one is truly accountable, who pays the price? We do. Behind closed doors, political power takes on a new meaning. BlackRock's reach isn't just in big companies, it's deep inside governments and global groups. Former regulators, central bankers, and finance ministers now work at BlackRock, and former BlackRock bosses, in turn, influence national budgets and money rules. This revolving door, honestly, blurs the line between public service and company loyalty. During the 2008 financial crisis, BlackRock was quietly hired by the US government to help steady the economy. Then again during COVID-19, and each time their influence grew while avoiding the strict rules that traditional banks had to follow. They're even allowed to check their own financial rule following, basically writing their own report cards. A shareholder oligarchy has quietly taken shape. Once, America dreamed of a shareholder democracy where every investor had a voice. But today, we face a shareholder oligarchy where control is held by just 3 companies. The richest 1% of Americans now own half of all stocks. The poorest 50%, almost nothing. And globally, the gap is even wider. Yet, corporations still claim that what's good for shareholders is good for everyone. But the people who actually create wealth, the workers, teachers, parents, and small business owners are left out of deciding where that wealth goes. The end game and what comes next is really important to think about. BlackRock didn't build these systems, but they made it perfect. They quietly turned finance into government, profits into politics, and markets into tools for control. And through legal loopholes, quiet influence, and smart ownership, they made sure nothing changed. But, it doesn't have to stay this way. There's a growing worldwide demand for answers, for openness, for money systems that help people, not control them. The people who make rules in Europe to the everyday activists in America, the fight is just beginning. Because in a world where one company can make money from all sides, the only real losers are the rest of us. If this video opened your eyes to the hidden forces shaping our world, don't let the truth stop here. Subscribe to the Global Deep Dive channel for more bold investigations. Give this video a like to support independent research. Comment your thoughts. We want to hear from you. And most importantly, share this with your friends, your family, your community. Together, let's break the silence and spread awareness. The world needs to know.